All right, and now we are recording. So, welcome everyone. Thank you again for joining us this morning. We are very happy to have you. Um, this is JMU's Counselor Education Program, or CEP's first webinar of the academic school year. So, for 2025-2026, so we're very excited. My name is Andrew Austin. For those of you who do not know, I am one of the co-coordinators of the Counselor Education Program here. So a lot of the questions that you may have coming to the counselor education email probably have been fielded by myself or my colleague, Adam. Today's webinar, as you all signed up for, so I'm sure you know, is an admissions 101 session. So you can get a lot of information about JMU's admissions process, as well as some general knowledge about college admissions processes as well. To kind of give you all a quick reminder again, this session is going to be about an hour long. It's going to be about 30 minutes for the presentation with our presenter, and then it's going to be about 30 minutes for a Q&A session afterwards. So if you need to cut out for whatever reason, you are more than welcome to leave at any point as well. It will be recorded and uploaded to our website. For questions that you all may have, please use the Q&A chat box in the bottom panel there, not the general chat function. That is where we'll field all the questions. I will be going through and moderating some of the questions as we go along, but we also will save some for the Q&A section as well. Today's presenter is John Pulley. He's a senior assistant director here within the Office of Admissions. So he will be doing our presentation. But first, I would love to introduce to you a new member of our team here, Kelly Ball. So Kelly, feel free to introduce yourself, please.
Good morning, everyone. Glad to see so many faces here, some familiar, some new. As Andrew introduced me, my name is Kelly Ball. I'm the new Associate Vice President for Access and Outreach and the Director of Admissions here at James Madison University. I just want to first start, before I dive a little deeper into who I am, is just thank Andrew and John and the team behind the Counselor Education Program for pulling this together for all of you, organizing the newsletters that you receive, the webinars, and the other connections that are part of this program. Counselor education is a huge part of our work, and you're all partners in the process. So I just want to give an acknowledgement to my team for putting this together. So I joined JMU in August. I'm very, very new, but I'm really thrilled to be here. The Office of Admissions team is truly top-notch, as some of you probably already know. And for those of you who don't, I hope you're getting the privilege to experience that as they're on the road. My team is filled with energy and talent and dedication as they make their way around the state of Virginia and beyond. But I'm privileged to get to work with them every day, and they're going to give me the excitement and energy as I take more steps forward to familiarizing myself with JMU and being part of this family and this community. So I worked for about 5 years at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio. And prior to that, I was at the University of Delaware and Penn State University. So I've come from some publics and some privates, but I'm truly thrilled to be at JMU. It is for those of you who know or don't know, it is truly a special place, which I, from today and onward, just hope to have the opportunity to share with all of you. I've found it, since I've joined, full of spirit, purpose, and growth. And one of the other things I want to share, although he's not on the Zoom with us today, but with the newness, here is also a new president. We have President Jim Schmidt, who joins us in July. And one of the things that's really exciting for us as we move forward is he's really set a path to take JMU to a new level. He's asked us to dream things that never were, and challenged us to think about JMU and ask, why not JMU? And so hopefully over time, you'll start to experience some of that growth with new staff and new leadership at JMU, which is exciting for us as well. And I don't want to take too much time from John, because I know he's eager to get started. So the last thing I just want to say is I'm really looking forward to connecting with all of you. The work that you do is important, and I'm here to help support it and the work that you do. So please know, as I said in my newsletter, if you had a chance to read it, I am a resource to you and your students and their families. Whether it's a question or a conversation, I really welcome the opportunity to connect. So without further ado, the last thing I'll say is go Dukes. And I will turn it over to John, who will drive the meat of today's conversation.
All right. Thank you very much, Kelly. So thank you for the introduction. I do want to kind of second a lot of the things that Andrew and Kelly mentioned. Thank you all for all that you do. You know, we really, on the JMU side of things, the college side of things, we really want to try to keep the process as straightforward as we can. But for you all are working very closely with the students on a regular basis. You're fielding a lot of the frequently asked questions that are coming in. So we just want to kind of thank you for all that you do. And if there's anything that we can do to make your lives easier or help you stay as educated as possible, like Kelly said, please use us as a resource. It's really our whole job is to help the students and also help you all. So I haven't done Zoom in a while, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. But if there are any technical issues, please let me know. How's that look, Andrew? Thumbs up. Beautiful. Okay. Awesome. So I know I was introduced already, but just to further introduce myself, my name is John Pulley. I serve as a senior assistant director here in the Office of Admissions. I do serve as one of our Northern Virginia regional counselors. I oversee select public schools throughout Fairfax County, Arlington, and Alexandria. A little bit about me. I grew up in a very big JMU family. I did not do my undergraduate experience at JMU. I went to Christopher Newport for my undergrad down in Newport News, and then I worked in their admissions office for a year before coming to JMU in 2020, which was a wonderful time to be starting a new job. But I have very much enjoyed my experience. And the other aspect is that in my time at JMU, I have overseen different regions throughout my years. So my first 2 or 3 years, I oversaw all applicants from New England and upstate New York. I had a year of overseeing applicants from the state of Pennsylvania before eventually moving into Northern Virginia. So in my experience, I've worked with a lot of different schools, a lot of different curriculums, a lot of different demographics in terms of the students. So there's not really going to be a catch-all answer when it comes to the admissions process. Everyone's going to have different backgrounds, different situations, and those are the types of things that we want to take into account. So in terms of today, I am going to go over a general overview of JMU and our admissions process. A lot of it's going to be information that I usually share with students and with you all when I'm on the road. But I do want to be a little bit more intentional about going more in depth, knowing that you all are kind of fielding a lot of the questions coming in. So I'm going to try to be very thorough, but at the same time, definitely utilize the Q&A option for the chat. Or for the Zoom meeting. If you have any specific questions or anything that we can potentially flesh out a little bit more, we definitely want to make sure that you are getting your questions answered. With that being said, based on your geographic location where a student goes to high school, they have an admissions counselor within our office that is assigned to be their main point of contact. So I'll do my best to kind of answer questions. I know Andrew and Kelly are going to be here to help answer questions as well, but definitely utilize your admissions counselor as a resource. Their job is to understand the curriculum, understand the classes that your students are taking. So they're going to be a really valuable resource for you. So I definitely recommend connecting with them. All right, so on the screen is just kind of an overview of some of the data points from this past year. We had a record-breaking number of applications with over 44,000 undergraduate applications last year, and we read every single one of them for a freshman class of about 4,850. You can see there 75% of that class comes from Virginia, and then 25% come from out of state. When it comes to that kind of population, usually that number is going to be pretty reflective of our applicant pool. So it's not so much going to be in-state versus out-of-state is impacting how we're reviewing applications. That number usually just translates to our applicant pool. So overall, we're about 21,000 undergraduate students with about just under 2,000 graduate students. So we do have some wonderful graduate level programs available, but there is going to be a large undergraduate focus when it comes to the JMU experience. And then a couple quick facts there over on the right, 92% freshman retention rate. All of our freshmen do live on campus for their first year, and I think that helps them acclimate to the JMU community and help them acclimate to the college experience, which I know can oftentimes be a little bit jarring for students as they're coming out of high school. But there's a lot of great resources available, and like I said, with all the freshmen living on campus, I think we do a lot to help them during that transition time. 97% of classes are taught by professors. I think that's really a rarity for schools of our size. Usually you see a lot of graduate assistants, student teachers leading the classes, but despite being a larger mid-sized institution, we really want to place a high value on those professor and student relationships. So we really focus on trying to make sure that most of our classes are being led by very passionate professors. So we have about 130 different undergraduate programs of study. So that includes majors, minors, and concentrations. And there's about 75 different majors to choose from. All of those undergraduate programs are going to fall within the 8 colleges that you see there on the screen. And there's a couple little snapshots of some cool things regarding each of those areas. Usually the Health and Behavioral Studies College is going to be very popular. Usually health studies is one of our most popular majors in terms of enrollment size. We have several pre-professional health tracks that students will oftentimes pursue. So that's going to be like your pre-med, pre-physical therapy, pre-occupational therapy, etc. Those tend to be very popular. College of Business is very popular as well. There's extensive internship and career opportunities available. And you can see there we fall within the top 5% of business schools in the US. Another couple cool areas, engineering is a great area, integrated science and engineering. It's going to be very project-based. And then visual and performing arts, there's a lot of different performance and gallery opportunities available for those students. I won't go into too many details about the Honors College, but that really is a great opportunity for students that want a much more enhanced academic experience. They'll take honors seminars. There's additional faculty mentorship opportunities, optional honors housing, and then, of course, the opportunity to graduate with honors distinction. So there's a lot of great benefits to the program, but it's really going to be geared towards students that are really passionate about learning and want a lot of those honors discussion-based seminars that are going to be a little bit more interdisciplinary. I know next month, the CEP webinar is going to be focused on the Honors College. So if you're interested in more details about the Honors College, I'd definitely check and see if you're available for that. Just know that it is going to be a separate application process. So any students that are incoming freshmen that are interested in the Honors College, there is going to be a separate application, but they can also apply to the program as a current student at JMU as well. All right, so that was a very brief overview of kind of the JMU experience, but with this being the Admissions 101 webinar, I do want to spend some time talking about the admission and the application process. I really want to kind of flesh this out for you all so that you are able to communicate with your students how to go about the application process for us. We try to keep it as straightforward as we can. So jumping into our deadlines, we have 2 non-binding deadlines. So we do not have early decision, which is that binding decision that some institutions have. We have non-binding early action. The deadline to get in all of the materials to complete the application is going to be November 1st. And then regular decision, that deadline is going to be January 15th. Typically, it's going to be about a 2-month turnaround. For early action applicants, those decisions typically go out sometime in mid to late January. And then for regular decision, those decisions typically go out sometime in mid-March. When it comes to early action, there's 3 different decisions that a student who applied to early action can potentially receive. They can either be admitted early action, they are either not admitted early action or denied, or they are potentially deferred. For students that are deferred, it typically means that we see strength in their application, but we just want to review them one more time within our entire applicant pool before giving them a final decision. And many of those students end up getting deferred from early action and then admitted in regular decision. For regular decision, the potential decision outcomes are going to be either admitted regular decision, denied or not offered admission regular decision, or potentially placed on the wait list. And the wait list process will vary from year to year, but those are the potential decisions that students could receive. Typically, early action, that tends to be the bulk of our applications. I don't know the exact percentage. I think it was around 31,000 of our applications last year came in through the early action pool. So the large majority does come in early action, and that tends to be our most competitive applicants. With that being said, it's a very kind of common question and something that I like to kind of flesh out with students. When it comes to applying early action versus regular decision, in the grand scheme of things, you're not going to be more or less competitive in one of those deadlines. It's not going to hurt the application to wait until regular decision or vice versa. In the grand scheme of things, it's not going to help or hurt one way or the other. Early action tends to be more competitive because we have that population of students that are deferred. But many of those students that get deferred, it means we see strength. And like I said, many of those students do get admitted later down the line. So in the grand scheme of things, students don't need to stress about that. I typically recommend applying early action just because they potentially get their decision earlier. But just know it opens up the possibility of having their application deferred. When it comes to the required materials, I've said it multiple times, we try to keep the process as straightforward as we can. The only required materials are going to be, number one, the application itself. And there's two different options. We have our own JMU specific Apply Web application that can be found on our website. And then we're also on the Common application or the Common App. Either one is totally fine with us. We don't have a preference. I think about 99% of our applications come in through Common App, but we don't have a preference between the two. The other required piece of the application is going to be the official high school transcript. So it needs to be an official submission. We do need to see the senior year schedule. That is something that we take into consideration with the review process. Most of the time that is included on the transcript, but students are also going to self-report that on the application itself. So those are really the main things that we need to complete the application. But then outside of that, we do have some optional materials as well. When it comes to the optional pieces across the board, I really want to emphasize that when we say optional, we mean truly optional. It's not one of those like wink, wink, nudge, nudge, you should do the optional pieces or optional but recommended. It's not going to hurt the application if a student chooses to exclude any of these materials. But the option is there if they would like to submit it. The academic record is going to be the main priority for our process, and I'll kind of touch on that in a moment. But students don't need to stress too much when it comes to the optional pieces. So with the optional supplements, number one, list of extracurricular activities. We love to see students that are involved. We love to see students that are taking advantage of opportunities outside of the classroom. But ultimately, academic success is going to be the main focus for us. So extracurricular activities, students are welcome to submit those, but it's not something they need to stress about too much in terms of what is potentially going to impact their decision. In terms of personal statement, that is also going to be optional. If a student chooses to apply through the Common App essay is what we receive as the personal statement, and they can select whichever one of those prompts on the actual application. When it comes to the personal statement, again, students don't need to stress about it too much. With that being said, if there's any context or any information that would give the admissions committee a better understanding of the student or their academic record, that can be a good thing to write about in either the personal statement or the letter of recommendation, the additional information section. Anything that can give us a better understanding of the student's academic progression, that can be a beneficial thing to include somewhere on the application. So the example I use very frequently is if the student had something happen in their personal life during like their sophomore year, maybe a family member passed away or they moved houses, and that clearly impacted their academic record. We can see on the transcript that there's a little bit of a dip during that sophomore year. That can be a really good thing to include somewhere on the application because it gives the admissions committee a better understanding of who they are as a student, and it helps us kind of flesh out what we're seeing with the transcript. But outside of that, don't stress too much about the personal statement or the letter of recommendation. Usually for letters of recommendation, we just accept one with each application. But again, any context that you all can include as counselors or anything that can be included on the letter of rec, that kind of thing would be beneficial. Then finally, secondary school report, another optional piece. We'll take a look at that if it's included. But a big one is going to be the SAT and ACT scores. They are really not going to have an impact on the decision itself. We try to be straightforward in that It is an optional piece. Students are welcome to submit their test scores, but it's not going to have an impact. It's never really going to sway a decision one way or the other. You can see on that bullet point at the bottom, last year, only about 19% of our applicants submitted test scores from the applicant pool last year. So a lot of times students will ask what a good test score is, what our middle 50% is, but keep in mind any of those numbers that you see, it's based on less than a fifth of our applicant pool. So they really don't have a large impact one way or the other. So it's not going to be something to stress about. If a student chooses to include test scores, keep in mind they need to be officially submitted through College Board or through the testing agency in order for us to include them on the application. There we go. All right, so I did touch on it in terms of what we are looking for. I mentioned it, the academic record, the academic performance in high school is really going to be the main priority with our process. Ultimately, like I said earlier, we love to see students that are involved. We love to see students that are passionate about JMU, but ultimately we want to admit students that are prepared to be academically successful once they get to JMU. Another important component to keep in mind is that when students apply to JMU, they are applying to JMU as a whole and not to the individual majors. When a student fills out the application, they can list their intended major on the application, but that is not going to have an impact on the actual review process. It's not going to make them more or less competitive one way or the other. We have many students that come in undecided or exploratory. We are admitting to JMU as a university and not to those individual programs. For that reason, all students, we are going to be focusing on their core academic areas. So that's going to be the English, math, foreign language, lab science, and social science classes that they completed throughout high school, regardless of their major. So we're going to be focusing on those areas. We do note the GPA when students apply to JMU, but since we're focusing on the core areas, we're really breaking down the transcript class by class so that we can look at the final grades within those areas. Typically, for competitive applicants, we want to see mostly A's and B's within the core areas for them to be competitive. Usually, a couple C's here and there are fine, especially if it's in a rigorous course load. But just know if there's a couple C's on there, usually we want to see more A's to kind of balance them out. That's usually the approach when it comes to the grades that we're looking for. And like I said, we note the GPA, but we don't make decisions based solely off of that. The other very important factor to keep in mind with the admissions process is that we are also looking for a rigorous course load throughout high school. So what that means is that we're looking at the curriculum available to the student, and we want to see that they've challenged themselves with that curriculum. So students are always reviewed based on the context of their high school, but typically college level coursework like AP, IB, dual enrollment, Cambridge International, or any honors courses, advanced courses, typically if those classes are available to the student, we want to see students challenging themselves with those classes. It's not going to be a magic number, but usually that is going to be a very important aspect with our review as well. I think the other thing that I'll just kind of touch on with that, we do look at students within the context of the high school, but we also do look at the academic progression as well. So if a student switched schools or transferred schools at some point during high school, we would note that and take that into consideration as well. Things like trends, upward trends, down trends, throughout high school, those are also things that we will take into consideration. So we are looking at the transcript kind of holistically. We're looking at all of that to kind of build the picture of the student. But typically, rigorous course load and then mostly A's and B's in the core areas is really what our decision is mainly going to come down to. All right, so I did touch on kind of those core areas that we're going to be focusing on, but I do want to kind of go into a little bit more detail regarding some of the progression things that we usually want to look for. So typically for students with the core areas, these are some of the things that we also want to see. For English classes, we do want to see 4 years of English. Usually that's going to be a requirement for graduation, but that is going to be something that we typically look for. Math is definitely one that I want to emphasize. When it comes to our math kind of requirement or what we're looking for in terms of the math, that's going to be a very important factor. Usually to be competitive, we really need to see a math beyond the Algebra 2 level. Typically, that's going to be a math that has Algebra 2 as a sole prerequisite. I think a lot of times some of the trickier areas are when a math has Algebra 2 or another class listed as a prereq. Oftentimes that does not meet what we're looking for in terms of math. A common one that I run into in Northern Virginia, AFDA, the algebraic functions data analysis, or advanced functions, data science is one, but typically like your consumer math, business math, usually those types of maths are not going to meet what we're looking for. Usually it's going to be something like a pre-calculus, probability statistics, discrete math, or a college level math. If you do have any questions regarding a math that you potentially offer at your school or that your student is considering taking, you can definitely reach out to your admissions counselor. We can always review that course and let you know if it is meeting what we're looking for. A big reason for that is that at JMU, we don't have kind of the remedial or transitional math courses available. So for students that don't have that level above Algebra 2, oftentimes it is kind of a difficult transition into our math courses that we have here. And that's why the math is going to be a very important factor with our review process. When it comes to lab science, for in-state applicants, usually we want to see 4 years of a lab science, and then for out-of-state, usually 3 to 4 years. It does typically need to be a lab science. Apologies if I said math. I might have said math. For lab science, 4 years in state, 3 to 4 years out of state. It does need to be a lab science that has a lab component. So that's kind of the main thing that we're looking for. And again, if you have any questions about a specific class, you're welcome to let your admissions counselor know. Social studies, typically 4 years. I say 4 years, but usually kind of 4 credits is what we're looking for when it comes to these different areas. So a lot of students will take 1 social study freshman year, 1 sophomore year, and then if they do 2 their junior year, we'll see that as kind of their 4 years. But just to kind of clarify that. And then for foreign language, going to be another important factor. For in-state applicants, usually we want to see at least 3 to 4 years of a single language, or 2 years of one and 2 years of another. So the 2 plus 2. For out-of-state applicants, usually we just want to see 2 years of a single language or whatever meets their state graduation requirement. So you can see some of the things in there that we're looking at, kind of the in-state, out-of-state. When it comes to in-state applicants, usually what we're looking for in terms of the core areas aligns with the Advanced Studies diploma. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. The Advanced Studies diploma isn't a strict requirement for students to be competitive, but usually what we're looking for with those core areas aligns with those diploma requirements. All right, so I do want to touch on real quick financial aid scholarship information. I definitely want to make sure to leave time for any specific questions if there was anything I kind of missed. But when it comes to financial aid and scholarships, the FAFSA is going to be required for any federal, state, or institutional grant aid offered through our financial aid and scholarship office. Any of our scholarships that have any type of need-based component, a student is going to need a FAFSA on file in order to be considered for those scholarships. I think as of now, for this academic year, the FAFSA is open and available for students to access. And then the priority filing deadline is going to be March 1st. So definitely want to encourage students, if they want to be considered for any of that aid, to make sure to get the FAFSA in a timely fashion. When it comes to other JMU scholarships, there's really a variety in terms of the different scholarships that are available. We do have some scholarships that all admitted students are automatically reviewed for. The big example is our Madison Awards for Academic Excellence. Those are going to be strictly merit-based, and they're going to be offered by the different academic colleges that we have on campus. And those are strictly merit-based, and all students, as long as they are admitted, they are in consideration for those scholarships. Outside of that, we do have a lot of different more departmental scholarships, more specific scholarships, but the main resource for that is going to be our Madison Scholarships Hub. So students, after they apply to JMU, they submit the application, they will receive instructions to set up their My Madison applicant portal. That's where their decision will get posted. That's where the application status is listed. But on that portal is going to be the Madison Scholarships Hub, and that has the full list of JMU scholarships for students to look into. On that hub, there is I believe it's a general scholarship application where the students can fill out kind of basic information that will put them in consideration for many more scholarships. And then the more departmental ones that may require additional steps or additional applications or different things are also going to be listed on that hub. So really, the Madison Scholarships Hub is going to be the main resource for any students looking into JMU scholarships. And then the FAFSA is going to be also required for any other aid options available. And then before I wrap up, I just always recommend students to visit campus if they get the opportunity, regardless of whether it's JMU or visiting other institutions. I think visiting colleges is one of the best things you can do for the college search. I think a lot of students can do a lot of online research. They can look up what institutions have the programs that they're interested in. But I think actually putting yourself on campus and being able to potentially talk to current students or professors, I think is a really great way to help students figure out if a college is going to be the right fit for them. In terms of our visit options, we do have regular campus tours offered throughout the year. Students can go to jmu.edu/visit to look into our visit calendar. I would also recommend our Explore JMU academic open houses. We have two of them this fall. One of them is going to be this upcoming Saturday, so we're super excited. And registration is still open, so if any of your students want to look into potentially attending an open house, they can attend the one this weekend if they are interested and available. But the open houses, those are really fantastic opportunities. Students can get a campus tour, but then the individual academic departments will also have open houses, information sessions, facility tours. It's very much a very in-depth visit experience. So I highly recommend the open house if the student is available to attend either of those, but a regular campus tour, there's also many options there as well. Be on the lookout. I think we may be having a junior open house in the spring as well. I'm not sure if we have that date confirmed, but if any of you are working with current juniors that potentially want to look into attending an open house in the spring, we may be having one of those options available as well. And then I think that wraps up kind of my presentation. Hopefully I touched on a lot of kind of the bulk of the information, but definitely we'll be jumping into the Q&A here in a moment. So hopefully we can kind of flesh out anything that you want to hear more about. But like I said, definitely connect with who your admissions counselor is. That is really going to be your main point of contact regarding any students that you're working with. That is the main individual that reads the applications for your school. So definitely utilize them as a resource. We want to make sure that you all feel as supported as possible, and we want to make sure that we are helping out to assist you with those conversations and with the things that you are doing with the applicants as they're navigating the process. But thank you all very much. I know that was a lot of info, but I will go ahead and wrap up. I will stop sharing my screen and I will turn it over to Andrew. We can kick off the Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you, John, so much for that presentation. There's a lot of great information that I'm sure provide a lot of clarity for a lot of the counselors as well as their campus partners as well. So we do have a couple of questions within the Q&A section. And if you do have more questions as things are being answered or you're thinking about them, please continue to use the Q&A chat box. But the first question I have for you here, John, is do you anticipate a future in which declaring a business major is selective? For example, not all students who want business would be allowed to declare, something similar to the nursing program.
I would say, I mean, if that is going to be something that is in the works, it's not something that has been communicated to us. As far as the business major, I think typically what is kind of the normal process for the business major is that students coming in will, there's a couple of prerequisite classes that students will typically take during their first year and a half before they officially apply to the business program. But I think generally it's not going to be super space dependent. So I think typically as long as students are completing the prerequisite classes and doing well in those prereqs, I think it's a pretty streamlined process. If that is going to change in the near future, it's not something that I'm aware of. If anyone else has any information about that, they can pipe in. But as far as I'm aware, it's a pretty streamlined process. I think a lot of our majors do operate similarly to that progression, with the exception of majors like nursing, some of our College of Visual and Performing Arts majors. Those are usually the ones that are going to be a bit more space dependent.
Yeah. to kind of reinforce what John said, that's also my understanding of it as well. To kind of reinforce that. I like this question just because it is specific to the student and the counselor, but it's a conversation that we can have about many people. This counselor has a student who lives in the DMV, but comes from a split household. The student lives with the mother in a different state than Virginia, but the father lives in Arlington. They go to school in Maryland, but is there a way to get Virginia residency for tuition in terms of being an in-state versus out-of-state student? And then what office would they go to contact for getting that handled?
Yeah, good question. I would say so that definitely comes up, especially kind of in Northern Virginia, a lot of the students that I work with. I will say there's just a lot of kind of specific details that will come up when it comes to the residency determination process. I would recommend we do have a residency committee within our office that oversees that entire process. They mainly focus on residency determination for incoming applicants, but they may have some of the answers to some of those kind of more specific residency focused questions. In terms of once they get to JMU, I think it just depends on kind of what factors are taken into consideration. It would either be like our university business office, or maybe our residency determination committee has a hand in that, but I do think they would probably be a good resource for you at this point in the process. And they do have an email if Andrew wants to include that, but residency@jmu.edu is the email you can reach out to that will get you connected with the admissions residency determination committee.
Yes, thank you. John, could you repeat the math that does not count as past algebra 2 when we consider maths?
Yeah, so when it comes to the math, the main thing, it may kind of vary, but the main thing is that it needs to be a math that has Algebra 2 as a sole prerequisite. I think the tricky one that comes up is if it has Algebra 2 or another class that's listed as a prerequisite. Oftentimes that may not be accepted, but again, it may just vary based on the course. But I will say generally, classes like pre-calculus, probability and statistics, discrete math, any college level math like AP Calc, anything like that, is generally going to be accepted. Usually the ones that come up that are not accepted are usually going to be kind of like consumer math, business math. I think data science is one that will come up sometimes. And then I think it's algebraic functions and data analysis, or advanced functions. AFDA is one that I see up in Northern Virginia a lot. But like I said, if you do have a specific question about a math, you're welcome to reach out to your admissions counselor and we can always confirm or deny.
Awesome. Thank you, John. I don't know if you have this number offhand or if maybe Roger or Kelly might, but of total applications for 2025 entering freshmen, how many were admitted in early action versus regular decision?
Let's see. I don't know if I have that exact number. I know I looked at the application numbers, and like I said, it was about 30,000, 31,000 early action applications, and then about 12,000, give or take, for regular decision. But the admit number, I don't have off the top of my head. But we can definitely, if Kelly or Roger has that number, we can give it out. But you can also potentially reach out to your admissions counselor, and we may be able to confirm that. But I don't have that offhand right now.
I also don't. I see Roger shaking his head no. Well, that would be something we definitely would follow up on. So whoever asked that question, if you want to reach out to us through the email, we can follow up.
Yeah, Libby, if you would like to have that answer, reach out to your regional counselor. So determining by your state, and they can find that answer out for you to get a more concrete answer. And if anyone else is interested, you could do the same, because that's a great question.
We did admit more than 20,000 in the early process of the 31,000 applicants. So it was about 2/3.
Thank you, Roger.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a foreign language requirement as part of our general education requirement to graduate from JMU?
I believe so, yes. I think in terms of the level that is required, it's going to depend on the degree that is being pursued, whether it's a Bachelor of Arts or a Bachelor of Science. I think the level is going to vary in terms of what's required, but I do think for the most part, foreign language is likely going to be required. unless I'm articulating that wrong, but.
So from my understanding as well, it is if you're seeking a Bachelor of Arts, so you're in the humanities, there will be a language requirement. But if you are seeking a Bachelor of Science, like something in the math or the hard sciences, so biology, chemistry, physics, it's not a language requirement. It's a more math and science driven requirements. So it just depends, like John was saying, on the degree that you're seeking and the program that you're seeking. Is nursing test optional?
Yeah, in terms of the like SAT, ACT, it's going to be test optional across the board. So even students coming in with nursing as their intended major, it's still going to be test optional. Same goes for our scholarships. That's a common question that comes up. I think across the board for admissions, scholarships, regardless of major, it's going to be test optional, and test scores aren't really going to have an impact, regardless of whether they're submitted or not. And I will say for nursing, it is not a direct admit program. So students can come in with nursing as their intended major, but they won't usually apply to the program until around the end of their first year. And that process is going to be a bit more holistic. There's a couple other things that they're looking at in terms of admission to the nursing program, but it is a separate process from general admission to JMU.
Yeah, and to kind of just piggyback off of that, someone asked how many seats are in the nursing program and how many students are admitted. So to kind of give you an idea, every semester we have over 200 applicants apply to the nursing program, and we have 113 spots to fill. So based off of that statistic alone, it's about just over a 50% admit rate for our nursing cohort every semester. And then, yeah, thank you, Michelle, for adding the nursing info in there as well. Other questions, we have a couple about FAFSA, and so I'm going to group them together a little bit here. So can you clarify, do people need to fill out the FAFSA just for need-based or also merit-based aid? And does a student need to have a FAFSA on file to be considered for any scholarships within the Madison Scholarships Hub?
Yeah, so I think it'll vary based on the scholarship. Basically, if any scholarship has some need-based component to it, we need to have a FAFSA on file. We do have some scholarships that are strictly merit-based. For those scholarships, I don't believe a FAFSA needs to be filed for a student to be considered for those, but any of the scholarships that have, even if it's not a large component of the review process, if there is a need-based component in the review, then a FAFSA is going to be required. I think the large majority of the scholarships are going to kind of require that FAFSA, but there are kind of a select few that are going to be strictly merit-based that a FAFSA is not going to be needed. But generally, it is recommended to submit the FAFSA just so we have it on file. And then in terms of the hub, again, it'll probably vary based on the scholarship because a lot of the more specific departmental ones are listed in there. So some of them may not have any type of need-based component, in which case a FAFSA may not be necessary. But that's usually kind of the approach to it.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Just to put it out there as I'm reading through the chat as well, the spring open house, Kelly said, is on March 27, 2026, and that is also a Friday, just so everyone can put that on their radar if students are interested. By fly-in tours, I'm assuming you mean if counselors are able to come visit, and that's a yes. Counselors are more than welcome to come visit any day that we have info sessions and tours, or just self-guided tours. If you are looking to come to JMU, whether you're from Virginia or out of the state, please reach out to Counselor Education via email, counselored@jmu.edu, and I'll put that in chat so that we can just take note of anyone that's coming, so that we can get you prepared for the day as well. The next question is, your common app data set indicates that state of residence is important factor in the application decisions. Could you speak to that? Is it helpful to be out of state or a Virginia resident?
Yeah, I think I briefly kind of touched on it. When it comes to our process, I don't look at it as really like an in-state versus out-of-state as being like an important factor. I think the main thing is that we're looking at students within their high school. So when we're evaluating a student, we're not comparing them to another school within the county. We're not comparing them to another area in the state, and then we're not comparing them to applicants from other states. So that's usually kind of the way I approach that. I wouldn't say whether you're in state or out of state is an important factor. I think it's more that we're looking at students within their high school and looking at the academic record of have they challenged themselves within that high school, and using that to kind of gauge our decisions. That's usually kind of the way I articulate it. It's very much we're focused on the student within the high school.
Awesome. Thank you, John. The next question is, if an out-of-state student is using the GI Bill and was granted in-state tuition rates, what happens to their tuition if they stop using the GI Bill in a subsequent term?
That is a great question. I don't know if Roger wants to hop in on that, or I can provide the email for that, but Roger might have more background.
Sure. The answer to that is if the educational benefits run out, JMU has a special clause in policy that's administered through our registrar's office or the Veterans Benefits team, and those educational benefits carry throughout the course of the student's study as long as there's continuous education. So, or as long as they're continuously enrolled. So if a student starts on the GI Bill, they'll have the GI Bill through their duration of study, whether or not the benefit lasts.
Awesome. Thank you, Roger. Roger, also, could you please introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure.
Since you are being very helpful here as well.
My name is Roger Burke. I work in the Office of Admissions. I'm currently serving as the Deputy Director and have been on campus, I guess, since 1989, having coached for 18 years and now in the Office of Admissions since 2007.
Awesome. Thank you, Roger. And I'm going to point this question to you as well, if you don't mind. So this person's asking, why do we ask on the Common App whether the applicant will be using veterans benefits to pay for education? Many applicants who are eligible for these benefits don't know whether they will use the benefits until after they see what financial and merit aid they're offered. Does the answer to this question affect admissions or financial aid in any way?
No, has no impact on the admissions process or the review process. And I think the purpose of that question is to be able to provide our colleagues in the veterans benefits area with the students who may potentially be utilizing those resources. It takes a while for those resources to be applied, and so they try to reach out as soon as a student has made the decision and paid their deposit, to start the process of communicating with them to determine whether or not they're going to actually utilize those benefits, and if they are, to give them the resources to be able to go forward and start that process. So it's not part of the application review process or admissions decision-making process in any way, shape, or form.
Awesome. Thank you, Roger. John, going back to scholarships. So if we're not taking test scores into consideration for scholarships, what is being looked at for scholarships like the Madison Award for Excellence?
Yeah, so I know Madison Awards, and I think a lot of those scholarships that are going to be kind of strictly merit-based, they are going to go off of the academic record, the high school transcript that is submitted. I think usually the admissions office will do our evaluation, will make those decisions, and then after that, at least for the Madison Awards, those are distributed by the different academic colleges based on the major that the student lists on the application. So for example, if they list finance as their intended major, the College of Business has a certain number of Madison Awards that they are able to give out to incoming students that are pursuing those majors. But ultimately, in terms of like the merit focus that they have, I think it is going to be focused on the academic record, the high school transcript, and test scores aren't going to have an impact.
Awesome. Thank you, John. This next question kind of wraps back around to the nursing program. So if a student is not accepted into the nursing program, can they apply again the next semester or in future semesters, I'll add? And is there a way to improve their likelihood of joining the program in those future semesters?
Absolutely. So we do have a process where students can apply kind of multiple times to the nursing programs, especially with it being very competitive and it is very space dependent. A student can apply multiple times to the nursing program. Again, it kind of becomes if they're getting into kind of their junior year and they're still not admitted to the program, if they are welcome to apply, but it does get to a point where it may just kind of drag out how many more years they would have to be at JMU. So it does need to be kind of a calculated risk that the student needs to take into consideration. But to answer your question, yes, they can apply multiple times, and some students will apply and get admitted to the program after their second, third time maybe. But for students coming in with nursing as their intended major, their first year advisor is going to be someone from the nursing department. So they're going to work very closely with the student to make sure that they are on track for the program. And they will be a resource for them to help them figure out what the best course of action is going to be, whether they should still pursue the program or if it gets to the point where they should look into other options, they'll have resources available there.
Awesome. Thank you, John. And the final question, unless anyone else puts other questions in the chat, which please do, we still have a couple minutes if there's any last minute lingering questions, is what senior year classes are we looking for? So if you could just maybe touch on that a little bit more. Does the amount of classes a student takes their senior year matter? And then just as a kind of additional piece for this counselor specifically, many of their seniors tend to take only a few classes and the classes that they need to graduate.
Yeah. Definitely. So this is a very kind of common question that will come up. In terms of the senior year schedule, keep in mind we are looking for certain core areas that need to be met. Like I said, 4 years of English, 4 years of social science, math beyond algebra 2, 3 or 2+2 for in-state applicants in terms of foreign language. Basically, as long as they're meeting those core areas, they should be all set. So when it comes to things like early release or study hall, like students working those types of classes into their senior year, it's not going to hurt the application. It's not going to hurt them if they choose to take those types of classes. With that being said, keep in mind that we are also looking for a rigorous course load. And a lot of times, depending on the school, a lot of times students that are competitive coming out of the high school have multiple college level courses, multiple honors level courses. And if students are taking those types of classes like early release or they're only taking kind of a handful, we still are going to be looking for a rigorous course load, if that makes sense. Potentially students may really challenge themselves, do a great job of taking rigorous classes throughout their freshman, sophomore, junior year to where they are going to be competitive. Then yeah, they can probably take a little bit of a kind of lighter course load in their senior year, but that's just something to keep in mind. We're not gonna fault the student for having a lighter course load, but we are looking for a mix of rigorous courses throughout high school. So that's just kind of the thing to keep in mind. Yeah, I had something else I was going to say and I completely forgot. But yeah, to answer your question, they can take a lighter course load, but we do still want to see a rigorous course load kind of throughout all of high school.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Well, like I said, that was the last question that I had in the Q&A and the chat box. So thank you all for submitting your questions. Hopefully we were able to get you the proper answers. And if we didn't, please feel free to reach out to your regional counselor. They are more than happy to field those questions for you and answer any questions that you may have about JMU's admissions process, the application process at JMU or in general, campus life, student life, all different things. In the chat, I'm putting one last time the landing page for the counselor education webpage, the email for the counselor education program, and then also the landing page to contact your regional admissions counselor, just so you have that one last time. But thank you all so much for showing up. Thank you, John. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Roger, for being here as well, answering the questions, introducing yourselves. I hope everyone has a great year. We're looking forward to coming to visit your school and meeting your students. So thank you all for being here, and hopefully we will see you soon in our next newsletter or webinar. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.